The Galactic Academy's combat theory classroom fell into an uneasy silence as Professor Zelthar demonstrated the proper grip for a standard plasma blade. 23 species sat in ascending rows, their various appendages taking notes on holographic displays. Among them sat Angelina Chen, the only human in the Advanced Tactical Studies program, her dark eyes tracking every movement with predatory focus. Oliver sat 3 rows behind her, his mandibles clicking nervously. The Creexian male had never quite understood the Deathworlder female who had somehow qualified for the Academy's most prestigious military track. Earth was legendary, a world of crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, and predators at every turn. Yet Angelina moved through the halls with a casual grace that unsettled even the Thoraxian combat instructors. The blade, Professor Zelthar continued, his forearms gesturing elegantly, is an extension of one's combat awareness. In close quarters, when energy weapons fail, only those with true discipline survive. A sharp laugh cut through the lecture. Drakmor, a hulking Vorsian from the mining colonies of Kepler 442, stood abruptly. His species was known for their aggressive territoriality and mineral-dense bone structure that made them nearly indestructible by most species standards. He'd been watching Angelina for weeks, his territorial instincts flaring every time she outperformed him in simulations. Discipline? Drakmor's voice rumbled like grinding stone. Professor, with respect, how can we learn combat from theory when we have a supposed Deathworlder who has never seen real danger? His yellow eyes fixed on Angelina. Humans hide behind their legends. Let's see if the soft skin can back up her planet's reputation. Professor Zelthar's scales rippled in alarm. Drakmor, return to your... The Vorsian reached into his utility belt and drew a ceremonial combat knife, its crystalline blade gleaming under the classroom lights. It wasn't a plasma weapon, but it didn't need to be. Vorsian ceremonial blades could cut through reinforced durasteel. A challenge, human. Show us what makes Earth so feared. Oliver's breath caught. This was madness. Drakmor outweighed Angelina by at least 100 kilograms, and his species had been bred for combat in high-gravity environments for millennia. The human would be crushed, but Angelina didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing prey, the smile that had sent ice through Oliver's veins when he'd first met her during orientation. It was the smile that evolution had carved into a species that had clawed its way to the top of a food chain that actively tried to kill them daily. Angelina, you don't have to, Professor Zelthar began. It's fine. Professor, she said softly, standing with fluid ease. She stretched her neck, and the small pops of her vertebrae echoed in the silent room. I think it's time for a practical demonstration anyway. She walked down the steps toward Drakmor, her movements unhurried. The Vorsian tensed, knife ready, his combat training screaming at him that something was wrong. Prey didn't move like this. Prey didn't smile like that. Here's the thing about Earth, Angelina said conversationally, rolling her shoulders. People hear Deathworld and think of the gravity, the weather, the animals. But they forget the most important part. Drakmor lunged, a textbook strike that had won him tournaments across 3 sectors. Angelina wasn't there. She'd moved with a speed that seemed impossible for her frame, tucking under his arm while simultaneously redirecting his momentum. Her palm struck his elbow joint, not the reinforced bone, but the vulnerable nerve cluster that every humanoid species shared. The knife clattered to the floor. Before Drakmor could react, Angelina had pivoted behind him, her forearm against his neck, her other hand controlling his arm in a lock that made his mineral-dense bones creak ominously. The most dangerous thing about Earth, she continued, as if she weren't currently controlling a being twice her size, isn't the environment. It's that everything on Earth had to adapt to survive it, including us. Oliver watched in stunned fascination as Angelina demonstrated the concept with clinical precision. She released Drakmor's arm only to sweep his legs with a movement so casual it looked rehearsed. The Vorsian, off balance and disoriented by the nerve strike, crashed to the floor with a thunderous impact. Humans don't have scales. We don't have reinforced bones or redundant organs, Angelina said, kneeling beside the gasping Drakmor. She picked up his ceremonial knife, examining it with academic interest. We have something better. We have persistence, adaptability, and most importantly, she stood offering the knife back to him hilt first. We have thousands of generations of fighting things bigger, stronger, and meaner than us, and winning. The classroom remained frozen. Professor Zelthar's forearms hung limply at his sides, his prepared lecture notes forgotten. Angelina helped Drakmor to his feet. Devorsian stared at her with a mixture of shock and grudging respect, cradling his numbed arm. "Your bone structure is impressive," she told him kindly, "but you telegraph your movements too much. You rely on strength when you should be thinking about leverage and weak points." She turned to address the class. "Every species has vulnerabilities. The key isn't being the strongest, it's knowing where to strike." Oliver found himself clicking his mandibles in what passed for applause among his people. Slowly, others joined in, a chorus of alien appreciation filling the room. Professor Zelthar finally recovered his composure. "Well," he said, his voice slightly shaky, "it appears we have a practical demonstration after all. Angelina, would you be willing to assist with the rest of today's lesson?" Angelina shrugged, that dangerous smile softening into something more genuine. "Sure, Professor. Who's next?" The classroom erupted in nervous laughter, but Oliver noticed something important. Drakmor had returned to his seat with a new look in his eyes. Not hatred or resentment, but respect. The kind of respect warriors showed each other across the galaxy. As Angelina began demonstrating proper defensive stances to the class, explaining pressure points and leverage mechanics with the patience of a born teacher, Oliver realized something profound. Earth hadn't produced survivors. It had produced teachers who understood violence so intimately that they could diffuse it with precision and grace. The lesson continued, but everyone in that classroom had learned something more valuable than combat theory. They'd learned why, despite humanity being one of the youngest spacefaring species, every major military academy in the galaxy had begun recruiting Deathworlders from Earth. It wasn't because humans were unkillable. It was because they knew exactly how to teach others to survive, and sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't a blade or a plasma rifle. It was a smile that said, "I've survived worse than you. Let me show you how."